Let me tell you, if you've never had the pleasure of holding a fake federal eviction notice in your hands before sunrise still warm from some psycho's home printer. Let me just say, it's not the kind of Monday surprise you want before coffee. There I was staring at Brenda Kessler's latest masterpiece, bad spelling imaginary case numbers, signatures that looked like she'd written them left-handed. And in that moment, all I could think was, Brenda, you poor soul. You have no clue what you've just walked into. Picture this 6 a.m. The Arizona sun barely up, and this woman, this self-appointed queen of the HOA, slides bogus court papers under my door like she's running a one-woman mafia. She doesn't even bother letting the toner dry. That's how desperate she is. Now, Brenda, for all her delusions of grandeur, had been gunning for my family for months. We're Hispanic, and in her eyes, that was enough reason to make our lives hell. Petty fines, fake violations. She went from annoying to criminal the day she started forging documents. Last week, she screamed right in my face, "People like you don't belong here. I'll do whatever it takes to remove you." And all I could think, as my blood was absolutely humming with anticipation, was, Brenda, you just picked the wrong fight. See, Brenda thought she was going after some regular Joe. She didn't know my wife Sarah was about to become her living nightmare. Most folks in our quiet little subdivision just think Sarah's got a boring desk job downtown. They have no idea she's actually a federal judge. And if you've never seen a racist HOA president try to outsmart a federal judge, trust me, it's better than any Netflix drama. Let me rewind for you. My name's Henry Rivera. 3 years ago, Sarah and I thought we'd found heaven in Sunset Ridge, this peaceful little spot outside Phoenix. I'd put in 20 years as a master electrician before a blown disc put me on semi-retirement. We dumped our savings into a modest house with dreams of launching my own solar installation business, less heavy lifting, more sunshine. The neighborhood was classic Americana, 147 homes, retirees, waving at kids on scooters, the smell of barbecue mixing with chlorine every night. Back then, HOA fees were sane, and the board actually cared about fixing things, not policing people. Sarah loved the low profile. We'd walk in the evening's desert heat, still coming off the street sprinklers ticking in the distance. She needed that anonymity. Her job presiding over federal cases meant keeping her head down. Just Sarah from the courthouse, she'd say, not Judge Rivera. For a couple years, life was good. Then Brenda Kessler rolled in like a summer haboob, 52, freshly divorced from some Silicon Valley bigwig, convinced she'd turn our Arizona paradise into her private police state. She drove a white Lexus that practically glared at you. You know, the type people with too much time and not enough purpose always find something to control. Within weeks, she'd conned the old board into electing her president. Restore property values, she promised. What she really meant was restore power to me. Her first board meeting was a 4-hour filibuster on enhanced standards. She started prowling the neighborhood with a clipboard like some predator on the hunt for nonconformity. And she didn't just happen to cite 3 families first, the Lucys, the Patels, and us, the only non-white households on the block. The Lucys got dinged for their daughter's sidewalk chalk art, the Patels for excessive cars during family gatherings, and me, I got nailed for having a work truck in my own driveway. That little piece of paper under my windshield, $75 fine for unauthorized commercial vehicle display, was so official looking I almost laughed. So being the stubborn mule I am, I laid out the HOA bylaws on our kitchen table and read every word. Not a single line about work trucks. When I called Brenda for a chat, she put on that honey-sweet voice. The board interprets standards as needed to maintain our neighborhood's character, Mr. Rivera. You're welcome to come to a meeting. The emphasis on our neighborhood was her not-so-subtle way of saying, not yours. That night I grumbled about it while fixing solar panels. Sarah just listened, her eyes sharp as she asked questions about the bylaws, the election rules. I should have known that's her I'm about to solve a crime look. I was too busy being angry to realize Brenda had just picked a fight with the wrong family. Brenda didn't stop. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in my boxers, coffee going cold, reading a $150 fine for lawn height violation, plus a $50 re-inspection fee. Apparently, my grass was 2.75 inches tall, quarter of an inch too high. I wish I was kidding. Brenda had even taken time-stamped photos and claimed she used a calibrated measuring device. I could practically smell her crazy on that letter. That's when I called Carlos Rodriguez, the neighborhood's landscaper. He showed up with pro tools, measured the grass, and started laughing. She measured during drought stress, senor. Your grass was actually 2 inches when she checked it. She overwatered one patch just to make it look tall. That's when it hit me. Never fight power with feelings. Fight it with facts. I spent the next night poring over Arizona's HOA laws and found a beautiful little oversight. All board elections have to be certified by the county clerk within 30 days, or else every decision they make is invalid. Guess who never filed her paperwork? Yep, Brenda. I started keeping records, photos, audio, every word. Sarah said, "Treat this like building a case." Smart woman, my wife. I wasn't the only one. Mrs. Lucy came over one night worried. Brenda had fined her family for culturally inappropriate cooking smells. The Lucys are Chinese, and their home always smells amazing garlic soy sauce, the works. But now it was a violation. We compared notes with the Patels. Mr. Patel, an accountant, had kept every citation. 43 in 6 months, 39 went to minority families. The 4 white families who got cited: oil stains, broken fences, actual violations. For us, it was our culture, our food, our existence. That's when I realized this wasn't just garden variety racism. It was a systematic campaign to scare us out. But here's the twist. Brenda calls an emergency board meeting to discuss my escalating aggression. She stacks the deck invites, only her fans, but Mrs. Lucy hears about it and rallies the rest of us. The clubhouse smells like stale coffee and bad perfume. Brenda's sitting at her makeshift judge's bench. She starts in with Mr. Rivera's hostile behavior is a threat to community harmony. I stay calm, just hand out copies of the real bylaws, Rodriguez's lawn report, and ask, "Show me where it says trucks aren't allowed in driveways." You could feel the room shifting as people actually read the documents. Then, old Harold Lucy, the treasurer, finds his voice. "Brenda, there's nothing about trucks or cooking smells in these bylaws." People started realizing they'd been conned. But Brenda, narcissists never retreat, pulls out a manila folder and accuses me of illegal surveillance and frivolous complaints. I had cameras on my property, sure, but only after she started her campaign. Right then, Mrs. Lucy and the others come in and Mrs. Patel announces, "We checked with the county clerk. The board was never certified. You have no legal authority to fine us." The silence was priceless. Mr. Patel, with his accountant's precision, explains uncertified boards can't collect fines or enforce rules. Technicalities matter in law, and that's when Brenda snaps. She threatens federal court action, says she'll use every legal resource available. But she makes one fatal mistake. "I'll take this straight to federal court if necessary." The irony made my heart skip. She had no idea my wife was a federal judge. That night, Sarah gets laser focused. Did she really say federal court? Did she name me? She asks. I realize Brenda is stumbling straight into federal territory. The next week, Brenda mails certified ultimatums to every problem family, threatening eviction through federal court if we don't comply. I couldn't have scripted it better. She was building a federal case against herself. Fear swept through the neighborhood. The Lucys, Patels, Gonzalez family, even white neighbors who suddenly saw they could be next called me, worried Brenda could really evict us for being too ethnic. That weekend, I hosted a meeting in our backyard. Maria Gonzalez shared how Brenda fined her for excessive cultural displays during her daughter's quinceañera. Mr. Kim was warned about his grandson speaking Korean too loudly. The pattern was crystal clear. We shared real HOA bylaws, compared them to Brenda's made-up rules, and realized 90% of the citations were pure fiction. And then the bombshell: Mr. Patel analyzed the financials. Brenda's collected nearly $5,000 in illegal fines, diverting maintenance money into her personal account. That's federal fraud. Around then, Janet Peterson, once Brenda's ally, shows up pale as a ghost. Brenda called me today talking about final solutions for problematic residents looking for support to permanently remove certain families. That phrase, final solutions, hit like a punch. Brenda wanted to file federal eviction papers in a court she thought would back her up. But here's where fate got poetic. Brenda's big legal move involved filing in Judge Rivera's own court. She even texted Janet identified optimal federal court strategy. Judge Rivera, known for supporting property values over disruptive elements. We'll file Monday. That's my wife, folks. Brenda was about to forge my wife's signature to evict us from our own house. That night, I showed Sarah the messages. Her face went cold, a side of her I'd never seen. "She thinks I'll support this," Sarah said. Brenda had no clue who she was really messing with. Sarah dove into the legal weeds. Our district randomly assigns housing cases, but there's a 73% chance any case Brenda files will land on Sarah's desk. When that happens, Brenda would have committed federal fraud in front of the very judge she'd targeted. Sarah mapped it out. Every illegal fine, every forged document, every threat, federal civil rights violations, document forgery, mail fraud. Brenda could face decades in prison. What now? I asked, numb with disbelief. Sarah's answer: we wait. We let her commit the crimes, and then we hand the evidence to federal prosecutors. I'll recuse myself, but the case will be bulletproof. The next week was a flurry of preparation. Cameras installed everywhere. Every family set up to record and document every encounter. Mr. Patel tracked violations in a master spreadsheet. We built a web of evidence so tight Brenda would trip over her own lies at every turn. And then Monday morning it happened. Brenda crept up ninja style at 6:17 a.m., sliding envelopes under doors. The fake federal court letter inside was a work of insane genius, official seals downloaded from Google, a case number that was literally her birthday, my wife's forged signature. The order: immediate eviction for persistent violations of federal community standards. The judge authorizing the order: Sarah Rivera. I played my part, called the courthouse feigned terror. The clerk said, "Sir, we have no record of this case. That document's a forgery. You need to call the FBI." Turns out Brenda had printed identical orders for every minority family, 12 in total. Each was a separate federal felony. But Brenda's pièce de resistance was calling an emergency meeting to announce her federal court victory. She handed out fake deportation notices like candy, waving her forged court orders in front of local media. And sitting quietly in the back, Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez, wired up and ready, recording every word. Brenda couldn't help herself. She started bragging about her thorough legal research, how she'd formatted everything to look official, how Judge Rivera, that's my wife, supported her actions. She confessed to premeditated federal fraud in front of a prosecutor, news cameras, and half the community. The next morning, the FBI and Attorney Martinez rang our bell. Sarah met them in her robes, laid out the forgeries, calmly explained the case. She forged my signature to justify racism. Sarah's voice was colder than ice. I want this woman arrested today. They did. At Brenda's compliance meeting, as she gloated about her victory, the doors swung open. Agents marched in, announced her arrest for federal document fraud, impersonation, and civil rights violations. Brenda turned ghost white. Then Sarah walked in, full judicial regalia, and addressed her directly. You forged my name, impersonated my court, and claimed I support the very discrimination I've spent my life fighting. Brenda's knees buckled. You're Judge Rivera, she whispered. I am. And you're under arrest. Brenda pled guilty to 14 federal felonies. She got 32 months in prison, 3 years of probation, $127,000 in restitution, which included paying back every family she hurt, covering legal fees, and even funding a new diversity scholarship named after herself. Her white Lexus got auctioned off to pay the debt. The story went viral. CNN, New York Times, 60 Minutes, turning Brenda into the cautionary tale of American suburbia. Our neighborhood transformed. Mrs. Lucy became HOA. President set up the Diversity Council. Cultural festivals, block parties, food from every continent all became the norm. My business exploded. Sarah wrote a legal guide on fighting HOA abuse. The sound of laughter, kids playing in 3 languages, the smells of curry and tamales and stir-fry, those are the true standards of our community now. Sometimes justice isn't just about punishment, it's about what you build after the dust settles. Brenda got what was coming to her, but what we built in her wake, that's the real victory. And here's the thing, looking back, I wonder how many little tyrants get away with hiding behind community standards and fake authority. Where do you draw the line between order and oppression, rules and racism? I'd love to hear your take. Have you ever faced down this kind of injustice? Drop your story or thoughts below. Let's talk about what justice looks like where you live.